Hi guys, so I am back live streaming. It's been a little while since I've been doing this, and I'm not really sure why, to be honest. I just kind of got out of the habit of doing things, and I've been working on a lot of music which I've been really has been hanging around for a long time, and I've been needing to get finished. And I just felt like I need to get my head down and concentrate and get some of the music closer to the finish line. And I've done that, and now I'm kind of back and ready to start doing a lot more live streaming. So, as I said, I'm going to try and do a session every Wednesday at least, and then maybe some more during the week. Wherever possible, showing off what I'm doing. So today I'm working on a track called "I Miss You," which is a tune I've been working on for a long time. I think it started in a live stream when I was doing a lot more live streaming, just me kind of jamming out different ideas, and it's taken on a whole new life since then. And I've recorded a lot of stuff, lots of flutes, vocals, brass section. I've kind of done my usual thing of hopefully making it sound bigger and wider and hopefully not overcomplicating it, which I do feel like I have a tendency to do sometimes. But I really like how it sounds, and I'm basically doing what I would call a posh mix down. So a lot of time when I'm doing my edits, I don't do what I would call a kind of posh mix down. I basically work with the mix down that I've got, the kind of mixes you go along mix down, and that's basically the mix down at the end. I kind of fix anything that needs to be fixed, and that's it. But four tracks that I think are a little bit more special to me, not that the edits aren't, but the edits are taking someone else's music, chopping it up, making a new track with it, whereas these ones I'm kind of recording everything myself and with other people, but it's all like original stuff. I kind of feel like it deserves more of a really kind of focused mix down. So that's what I do. So I kind of do this in stages, and I've already done a few of the stages with this track. The stages I've done are to basically bounce everything down as stems, um, and there's a lot of stems, so it's really more individual tracks than stems if I'm being um, kind of a bit more precise with my descriptions. And what I've done is basically really decide what is going to be mono, what's going to be stereo. You can see there's a lot of mono channels, and there's a lot of direction mixers making things mono. Um, yeah, so see mono here, mono there. So I've really tried to focus on what's going to be mono, what's going to be stereo. I've taken off all the spatial effects, all the reverbs, all the delays. They're all completely dry, and I've just realised. So hopefully you can still hear me, but that should be better. So yeah, hopefully you can still hear me because the mic was just in front of me, but you can tell it's been a little while since I've been doing any live streaming, so hence the getting to put the mic on. Okay, that should be a bit better. Okay, cool. So yes, so I've been doing things in stages, so making things kind of mono and stereo depending on whether I want them to be mono or stereo. I've done all my subtractive EQ, which you can see, like these are all buses here. So pretty much every channel, don't know why the crashes don't have anything on them, but every channel should have kind of an EQ, and this is what I would call kind of staging compression. So this is kind of setting things in the front back perspective. So in the 3D kind of mixing, it's how close or how far something is away from us. I'm trying to set that with compression. So let's just kind of play a little bit of the track. So that's basically completely dry, and all there is really is mono and stereo processing and subtractive EQ and as I said, what I call staging compression. So let's take off all the compression, just so you can hear what that's doing. So can you notice how the depth perception changes when I bring the compression in? So when the compression's out, it sounds a bit confused, and it sounds like lots of different sounds are playing have the same distance away from you when you're listening, hopefully. Whereas with the compression in, sounds are more grouped together. So all the drums have a certain attack and release time and a certain kind of compression setting. And then the flute has a different one. So depending on whether I want something to be close or far away, I've set different compression values. And that's what that's giving. So it opens things out and gives it more of a front back perspective, I think. So let's leave that out. And this is a subtractive EQ. So let's listen to what that's doing. Now, I'd say that's more subtle, but what that's hopefully achieving is to kind of stretch the mix a little bit and focus the highs and the lows to give it more of a kind of more height, essentially. So the highs feel a bit higher, the lows feel a bit lower, and again, separation. But that's more subtle. And the reason why it's more subtle is actually a lot of these sounds I've run through my outboard gear down here, like the harp and the flute and the bass. And I've kind of processed it before it went in there. So a lot of that has already been kind of dialed in. So is not as much difference when it comes to adding in the EQ. But let's take them both out and in again. So let's just see what the difference is. So to me, it's more focused, more separation, more clarity, and very importantly, more depth to the track. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, so that was just to set the stage, no pun intended, as to where I'm at with the mixdown. So the next stage that I'll be looking at now is going to be what I'd call additive EQ. Now, when people are EQing, especially I think in the early stages of a career, you kind of for electronic music and actually, mixing in general, people always seem to focus on. Let's just get a multimeter up. They seem to focus on the lows and the highs, the kind of the subs and the tops. Oh, I need to get the subs really fat. I need to get the tops really kind of clear and shiny or whatever. And they kind of just forget the mid-range. But the mid-range is where it's kind of the most important area of the track is the mid-range. This is the area that is going to cut through on every speaker. So it's going to be the mid-range. It's where the soul of the music is in the mid-range. So it's really important to try and have a kind of a process for basically approaching the mid-range and making sure that you get that exactly right. Let me just shut down the mail app. So what are we going to do to do that? Well, for the drums, basically, a lot of the EQing has been done pre-compression, which I do end up doing with the drums for some reason, but not so much on the other elements of the track. So I do tend to kind of EQ before compression on the drums, but for the other elements, it's usually post compression. So let's have a look at some of these sounds. So the approach to this needs to tie in with what the overall kind of vision for the mix is. And what I mean by vision is there's a vision for the track, which is what's the overall vision of the piece of music going to be. For this, it's kind of like a rare groove kind of vibe, lots of flutes, harps, kind of old school, but kind of a bit more modern production. I was listening to a lot of Bobby Humphrey, who's like a flute player from the 70s and 80s, I think. There's a track called Harlem River Drive that I absolutely love and I have done for years. And I just wanted to make something kind of in that kind of vibe. And I found a great flute player and he recorded some stuff. And I was like, I just love that. I'm going to build the whole track around that. And actually the track started with me with this vocal here.
which was, I think it was something from Output Arcade, or maybe I sang it in, I can't remember, but I vocoded a vocal basically and put that in there. So that's what the track started with that. But once I heard the flute, I wanted to build it more around the flute. So that's the vision for the track. But the vision for the mix is basically what I've done. Let me show you this. It's a kind of like crazed scribblings of a madman, but I don't know if you can see this. I've kind of I've got a piece of paper, and what I've basically done is kind of got speakers on there, and I've very crudely with a pencil just drawn where I want all the different sounds to be in terms of front back perspective, and also left and right. So I've got a clear idea of what I want to be in the foreground, what I want to be in the background, and then I understand how to use the mixing tools to be able to achieve that. So all these subtractive EQs and all this compression is designed to basically allow me to achieve what that vision is. So rather than just like randomly throwing things on, it's like it's much easier to get to the end of the mix because I know what I'm trying to achieve. So for example, this I Miss You vocal here, I want this to be fairly in the foreground because it's one of the features of the track and one of the things that I started with, and one of the things that gives the track identity. It's the name of the track, I Miss You. So it needs to be kind of, what does it need to be, but I want it to be kind of, forward in the mix. So there it is. And I've achieved that so far. Have you listened to it? It feels kind of forward, right? And the reason why it feels forward is that it's got a sample delay, which is producing differences between the left and right hand channel, which creates stereo information. Stereo information is much easier to localize when it's close to us. So as soon as there's stereo information, it tells our ears that something is closer to us. People have the idea that making things wide is what you do with pads and stuff like that to push them back. You make things wide when it's pads when they're too dense and they're taking up too space in the middle, too much space in the mono signal and in the middle. But actually, if you want something to feel further away, it should be more mono, not less mono. So that being said, what I'm going to do is show you the other stuff I've done. So this is I got a doubler, and this is an amazing plugin, a Patchwork by Blue Cat Audio. It's like what Logic's missing, which is lots of rack kind of routing like Ableton has. So it means you could basically have like a parallel chain which you can mix in. I've got a mix control here, so I've got a doubler and an imager from Waves just mixed in, so I can use that to make it even more stereo. Subtractive EQ is just doing some top and bottom roll off. The Vari comp compressor from Native Instruments is like a Manly Varimu compressor, and it's great for stretching things and making them feel higher and lower in terms of, because it's built on tube technology, so the lows kind of makes the lows a bit more pronounced and the highs, so make things sound bigger essentially. And the compression is slow attack, fast release. So basically that means that any transients, kind of beginnings of the words and stuff like that, are going to come through and pop through, and the release means that it's going to be kind of pumping, which means it's going to be more dynamic, more lively, kind of more alive, which brings it out basically. So let me show you what I mean. So if I bypass all of these, hopefully this sound should feel a little bit more in the background. Yeah, so more in the background, more mono, less kind of interesting, less alive, less forward, and then it comes forward. So the additive EQ is going to also play into this as well. Now, this is where we could maybe pick some more posh kind of EQ choices. So let's use the Logic Pultec, fake Pultec. I've got the Waves one of these as well, but what I quite like about this one is that it has everything. It has two Pultecs in one interface, and people that are following along with this or watching this that have Logic, it doesn't mean you don't have to buy anything. So when you're EQing additively, there's some things that we can try doing. So first of all, the more natural the sound and the more kind of the less fixed frequency the sound, the more you can maybe try using broader stroke, like shelves and stuff like that. Because obviously, like if a kick drum is the same all the way through the track, it's much easier to EQ because it's static. Whereas if things are moving around, then the EQ needs to be broader, because otherwise you'll get bits where it's loud and bits where it's quiet. And you can try like kind of shaping things, like approaching it like you would a bass kind of mid and treble control on a stereo essentially. But what we could do with this is to bring out again, bring it forward and make it seem bigger. Is maybe do a little bit of a kind of EQ at the top. So we could maybe do a high boost like so, and then a kind of low boost as well around the 100 hertz. Let's see what that's like. Bring that more body, it's a bit louder. So depending on how important the sound is, we can have different kind of amounts of EQ essentially. So this is more like a kind of a broad shelving kind of approach, but we could also have an area that basically is brought out in this sound in the mid-range as well. So if you think of the frequency range of like 400 to 2K, that's the kind of area that every speaker is going to be able to represent. So if you want a sound to be present in the speakers, it needs to have some kind of identity in that frequency range. So that's why it's quite good to basically try out having a little boost in that area somewhere between 500 and 2K. And we can sweep and try and find some different kind of areas here. Let's try a lower peak, low frequency. Let's try 800. So let's just try that 1.5. Yeah, I think it sounds better with that. And obviously, by driving it as well, we're just bringing in that little bit of kind of extra saturation, which is also going to help bring it out. Okay, let's take them both out. Let's bring those beats back. I wasn't really liking what the driver's doing there. Okay. So that's without it. And it's just subtly bringing that sound out and separating it from the other sounds. Okay, so what's the next thing we can have a look at here? Okay, so the piano is another sound we could look at. So let me just see where these pianos are going. Bus 23. Okay, I find pianos are a really difficult instrument to get to sound right. Really hard. So I'm kind of referring to my sheet, because I did this quite a long time ago now, as to where did I want the piano to go. So I kind of want the piano to be quite mono, but I haven't. I've made it very stereo, so I've obviously gone against that. Sometimes I haven't EQ'd subtractively because there wasn't anything there to take out really. So I try not to do it just for the sake of it. Because every time you do something, you're going to be slightly altering something, you know. So I always try and keep the sounds as natural as I can. Okay, so let's try another kind of. I've bussed these two pianos here, so it's kind of a chord again one, which I find really good, even subtly, just to give that kind of punch to the piano. So when I've got a nice natural piano, but it's not cutting through, I kind of layer it on there. So there's a plugin from Waves. What's it called? I'm sure we're going to H. No, it's Kramer HLS. I find this quite a nice EQ on pianos. So again, I want the piano to have a little area to cut through, but often it's a good idea to try a different boost to some of the other sounds. So maybe we could vary it a little bit from the vocal. That adds quite a nice little snap to the piano, actually. Often you'll find with these kind of older EQs where you just have like a dial of values, a lot of the time they're actually set up to be somewhere which is quite a good place for the sound to be EQ'd, you know. What's going on here? I don't really know why this -3. Funny, it's kind of got frequencies at the top and then different values at the bottom. It's quite weird. Okay, so let's try a little boost around 120 as well. So kind of trying to balance it out. So depending on what the sound is and how important it is, you have kind of, I'd say, like different areas of EQ, so or different amounts of additive EQ. So if this piano is quite an important sound, I'm going to try like a 2-point EQing. So one boost at 2K, then a balancing boost at around 120. Now I know that neither of those are within that mid-range area I was talking about, but the piano's got quite a lot of mid-range in it anyway. So let's just see what we get with this. Yeah, so again, it's just helping that piano kind of come through a little bit more. And this is going to add gentle saturation as well, because it's built on some kind of old school piece of equipment, which is going to add a little kind of pleasing drive to it. And we could even drive it with the preamp here. Let's see what that's like. Can't really hear a difference there, but I definitely like what that's doing to the piano. Yeah, that's really nice. Now I wonder actually, if I go to setup B and load, is there... So sometimes it's quite nice to actually have a look at what the presets do. There isn't a piano preset. Sometimes I like to have a look at, see if there's like a preset that is set up for piano and see what they think is a good setting on their plugin for piano, but there isn't one for the piano. So I like what that's done to the piano. That's cool. Okay, so we've got more pianos here. It's pretty average on their own, but I think in the mix they kind of work as a layer. Well, I'm going to put that to the same channel. This is layered with a kind of a kind of synth. So this one I've made more mono. You see, I've got a direction mixer, 20% kind of spread, and listen to the difference. So this is mono because I wanted to be pushing it back. Now, because I've got the vocal, the I miss you vocal with lots of stereo information, I don't want to clutter things up and take away from that by allowing this to have lots of stereo information as well. So you've got to make a kind of decisions on what the priority is in different areas, you know. So what's going to have the stereo information, what's going to be more mono, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. So let's have a look at that piano build sound. I'm going to leave that as it is actually, because it's not really a marquee sound. What's this marimba part doing? So these are all kind of adding up to make a sound. This marimba, the kind of Juno style patch, and the piano is kind of creating kind of a layered effect. So I'm not going to treat that separately. I'm going to leave that as it is. Now here we go. Here's a kind of little keys part. You can turn that up a little bit. So it's this sound here. Okay, I'm just going to use a Pro Q3 for this. So you can kind of see it's got its kind of energy in this kind of area here. But we can kind of give it a helping hand. Let's just take down the output a little bit. So by taking down the output, what we're doing is turning up this area and essentially turning down the areas outside of that, which is just helping it poke through a little bit in that area, which is kind of doing anyway. And that's kind of answered by this little guy over here. Okay, so we've got this kind of indie guitar. So these are kind of playing on top of each other a little bit. So it would be cool to create a different kind of EQ for this. Now I'm going to go to the vintage collection and the graphic EQ, which I just always use on guitars. So let's see what we can get with this. I do kind of miss the Pro Q3 just for the visual aspects of it. So that's obviously got quite a nice kind of 1K boost to it. So let's create a little curve for this. Now this guitar I've used on something else, and I got it from my Apple Loops library of sounds that I've kind of used before. So it's probably been EQ'd and compressed and whatever else already, but let's put it anyway. That's a good example actually of where what I'm doing is not feeding into the overall vision, because that's bringing the sound out more, bringing it closer to me. I don't want to, this is a background sound, and I've set up everything here, fast attack, slow release. I've set this up to be a sound which is regressing or kind of going to the background rather than the foreground. So I don't want to EQ it to come out more. So that 1K is bringing it out more, which I don't want. So I'm going to leave that sound as it is actually. So the flute, I've done a lot of work on in the analog world with my outboard stuff down here, but let's just have a listen to it. This is kind of the most important sound in the track in many ways. It's like the kind of lead part, and it's got that Bobby Humphrey kind of vibe to it. So yeah, check out if you're interested. This is a guy I recorded on Fiverr. He's called Rowan. He's the flute player, amazing flute player. So if ever you want to get some great flute parts in your track, very reasonably priced. So yeah, check him out. Really good musician. So yeah, I could try something on this. Now I want to be quite natural with this. Use something quite kind of yeah, go for like a. Do you know what? I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use a Neve thing. Go for something old school and a bit kind of posh for this, I'd say. So I'm going to go for this Neve style EQ. Let's just see what comes out. Again, I'm going for kind of a shelving kind of vibe here. So let's just see what we get with this. Yeah, I quite like what that's doing to the. It's bringing out some of that, the kind of breath. I just wonder what it's like with the Pultec instead, with a little bit of a higher frequency. I'm not sure. Let's try this one again. Yeah, I didn't like the Pultec, but the thing is, it has already been through my hardware Pultec, so I'd forgotten that. But I think that Neve thing's adding something quite nice to it, making it just sound a little bit more open. As I said, this is kind of like the marquee sound of the track in some ways. It's kind of it's the most it's the most lead kind of instrument that plays all the way through. So it's an important sound, and it's one that I want to kind of be really in the foreground. So boosting kind of high frequencies and bringing it out and boosting in that kind of 6K range is what tells our ear that something's coming from it's closer to us. So that's quite a good way of doing it. Okay, so another sound I want to look at is definitely the harp. Now the harp is something I recorded again on with someone on Fiverr. I've always loved the sound of the harp. So this is a sound I definitely want to be a kind of featured sound as well. So what could I try on this? Let's try this SciQ. This is a Sound Toys plugin. So let's drive it a bit and let's just dive in and try some things out. Wow, that adds a nice high end to that. Now in the mid range, this is as I said, it's an important sound. So let's try and look at an area we could boost in the mid range to bring out as well. Can you hear a bit of distortion now? I'm trying to work out what it is. I think it's on the recording, but I don't think you're going to notice it in the mix. But that adds a really nice high frequency to it. Yeah, I like that. It's bringing that sound out a little bit. Okay, what else have we got? Guitars here. Guitars are always a good one for EQing. So this one I'm going to go again for the graphic EQ. Let's see if it's got some presets. Funky rhythm guitar, let's try that. Yeah, that sounds cool. Let's try electric rhythm guitar. Not too bad. Let's try electric lead guitar. You just feel how that's louder, but it also comes out at you more. It's more, yeah, it just comes to the foreground a bit more. And this is how we can actually create guitar tones. You can see where you have boosts and kind of dips in the frequencies. Is how you create a tone to it. See here, so you have big dip, kind of big boost. Again, it's creating these kind of tones to the guitar. You can hear how much more solid that is with that EQ, and I like that. I'm going to leave it on that setting there. That's much easier than having to design a setting every time. There's no shame in using a preset like that, I'd say. So this is the second most important guitar part. So I may have already EQ'd this a little bit going in when I recorded it. I can't actually really remember, but let's have a look what this gives us. I feel like I'm going mad, it's because I was looking at the same EQ with different presets. Okay, there we go. Let's try electric rhythm guitar for this one. Yeah, I kind of like that setting, but it's a little bit too much. I wish all plugins had like a Pro Q3 option of just dragging 100% down, so you get the same setting but just less. Just spend ages just like bringing down. I don't know what. Can you select multiple? No. It's just really annoying not being able to kind of just lasso everything and bring it down. It just seems such a simple thing to be able to do. Okay, yeah, I like the sound of that. So what have we got? Oh, whoops. We've got some, what have we got here? We've got some effects here. These sounds are definitely going in my Apple Loops library when I finish with this track, because I really like those kind of effects. That's actually me playing with these guitar pedals here and just recording weird stuff and messing with the settings to get those kind of vibes. Okay, let's have a look at working with these two guitar pairs here. Again, let's just go electric rhythm guitar. Okay. Okay, so there's another sound that I want to look at here, which is this vibe here, which is a vocal that my good friend Chris recorded for me, Chris Pearson, who played bass on this track as well, in fact. Very nice. So I'm going to whack on a Pultec on this and do a little bit of the same. This is the Waves Pultec, just mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to try a classic kind of vocal EQ, 12K boost, 100K boost as well, 100 hertz boost, sorry. 100K boost wouldn't really notice that much too much, would you? Pultec's just mental. You can boost it so much and it just never seems to sound harsh. It's incredible. So I feel like that harp's a little bit too gnarly. Has anyone ever described a harp as being gnarly before? I don't know. So this, remember, this is completely dry. If you listen to this thinking this sounds a bit strange, because again, I like to approach the reverbs and the delays separately. So I have a kind of different, do that in a new session, and again, approach it, rather than just like flicking around doing different things. It's more like if something is offensive to listen to and needs to be fixed, then obviously it gets fixed. But I like to kind of just really focus on all the additive EQ and picking out sounds that need to be picked out, and then really focus on the spatial awareness, the spatial aspect. And the thing is that the spatial aspect needs to come after all these other processes, because what we're trying to do is actually create space for reverb and delay to exist in. So if you just slap reverb and delay on things that you haven't EQ'd and you haven't compressed, then you basically just like you're basically just reverberating the kind of mesh you've created. Now, it's not necessarily going to be messy, but if there's lots of low frequencies that don't need to be there and harsh high frequencies that don't need to be there, and you put a reverb on it and you're not EQing that reverb, then you're basically just accentuating that problem. So it's a good idea to try and dial all those things in before you actually start adding in spatial effects. Cool. So that vocal, I think that Pultex really brought it to life. Okay, cool. So there's a flute, layered flute here, that again was recorded with the flute player Rowan on Fiverr. No, I just wonder if this needs to be a little bit kind of spaced out in terms of stereo field, or whether it will sound weird. I want to kind of maybe make it feel like there's flute players that are standing next to each other, but a little bit spread. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, so we've got a brass section here as well. Of course I do. Okay, so let's just look at a little EQ setting for the brass here. Let's try the Neve setting. I was hoping for a brass preset would be quite good, but let's check out the graphic EQ. Nothing on there. I would never normally actually do this, but I feel like it's quite good to let just try out some ideas from programmers that have dialed in some sounds, but obviously there's nothing there for brass. But let's try and dial something in. So let's have a look at maybe like a 2K kind of boost. Higher. Yeah, I like that. So that was a 6K boost in the brass, and then a kind of 400. I think I settled for 400 boost in the brass. So bit of mid-range presence and a bit of that like kind of punch on the kind of 6K area, that kind of transient kind of area. Not that brass really has that much of a transient weight. Maybe it does if you're depending on the way you play it, but just cuts. It's a bit more cut when it has that setting in there. Okay, cool. So I think those are kind of the marquee sounds covered. Maybe the strings. Let's have a look at what the strings are saying. That guitar sounds really good now, actually. A bit too loud, but really comes through. So there's this plectrum key sound for some reason I haven't compressed or done anything with, really. This is a kind of hold in place setting. So what we got here, so this is my hold in place compression setting. So 1 millisecond attack and then a 500 millisecond release. I love it when you just loop a section of the track and you just get a little kind of a little remix groove going. Which is actually something I want to do, is make a remix of this, which is a bit more a bit less kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit more simple, a little bit more loopy, that kind of vibe. That was something I wanted to try. Okay, so plectrum keys. So this can have a little boost around here. There's a little bit of sub down there which has found its way through. So listen to how, okay, with that in, it's a little bit loud, but listen to how this kind of uncouples from the bass a little bit. So with the EQ out, so with the EQ in, it just kind of takes itself away from the bass, because the bass is here. This has got a bit of a dip in it. The volume's turned down massively, and it's got a boost in here. So suddenly, this area where the bass is most prominent, the bass has also got a boost around here as well. But this has got its boost here, so it's kind of just uncoupling from the bass a little bit. This is the bypass, by the way. It's also kind of uncoupling from the strings as well a little bit. Now, talking of strings, I was kind of quite into that Psy Q from Sound Toys. So I wonder what that does on the strings, because the strings, I want to have like nice kind of high frequency sheen on the top. Okay, let's have a little look at the drums. Now, without wishing to get obsessed with something, I want to try the Psy Q on the on this disco loop. Okay, so I'm just going to bust these sounds together. This loop, this is quite an important loop. I feel like that kind of is maybe a little bit annoying. So I wonder, I don't want to get too kind of rabbit holey with this, but I wonder if there's a way using Pro MB of do I want to do this? So I'm trying to basically kind of act like a gate essentially. Yeah. So I don't want to destroy this sound, and I'm going to put a linear phase as well. But listen to how this is expanding the dynamic range by only allowing sounds that go above the threshold to come through. So it's basically acting like a gate, essentially. Pretty impressive. So that's just so much more effective than EQ, because it's just taking the sound out. It's not turning it down. It's just removing. Well, it is turning it down, but it's much more effective than EQ. And let's just see what that's like in the mix. Yeah, I think I like that actually. It just seems to unclutter things a little bit. Now, I wonder what it's like if we just combine it with a little bit of the opposite. So a little bit of an upwards. This is a downwards expansion. This is an upwards expansion. So we're turning up sounds that go above the threshold. So basically going to create a little pocket of energy in this area here. Really nice. Let's put it on oversampling. I'm just going to try it without that boost there. Yeah, I don't really like the boost. It's just making things sound a little bit too messy. Now the claps here, I've decided they're kind of a important sound. Now with this track, I kind of couldn't quite work out what the space I was trying to achieve was, but on all my tracks I'm working on at the moment, pretty much. In fact, I need to change this. I've got this sound of like kind of ambience. And I actually got it from, I did a remix years ago of a track called Fool by Geek Boy, big up Geek Boy. And he had this ambience sound in the mix, and I've just used it in the remix, and I've kind of used it on a few tracks since. So it's that, yeah, that kind of Summer's Day vibe. So I thought of like this track kind of, maybe it could be like you're at a festival in the summer, and a little small stage, and there's some kind of crazy like funk rare groove kind of band playing, but they've got a kind of DJ with them or something, and it's like a summer's day, and it's all good times and good vibes, and then the kind of like the vocoded vocal gave me a kind of so kind of a strange more like a futuristic kind of feel. So then it got me thinking of like some weird kind of robotic band playing retro kind of instruments, but in the future on a summer's day. I don't know, just like crazy stuff like that. But it's quite good to try and think like that, because it gives you kind of a direction of how you want to process things. And I can't even remember where I'm going with this, but yeah. So that's what I was going to say. So the claps, I've set the drums a setting in terms of their front back, and the claps don't adhere to that. So the claps I kind of wanted to be quite forward. So if you focus, the claps feel like they're closer than the rest of the drums. So I kind of wanted to make it feel like there was people around clapping, or people at the front of the stage clapping that were closer. So we could try and bring out those claps even a little bit more. I'm just going to go with a Pro Q3 for this, and try and find a little pocket we could bring out in the claps. In fact, claps always just go straight to 1K for the claps. maybe a little top boost as well. In fact, let's try this. This is always quite nice. A tilt shelf. Kind of just acts like a kind of bass mid, not a bass mid treble, a kind of bass treble effect. So focus on those claps. Do they come out of the speakers a bit more with that EQ in? Yeah, I think they do ever so subtly. So let me just check out the snare, and then I think we're probably done for now. Again, yeah, I think increased separation there with in the snare. And that I think is probably good for now. We've got the kick there, the bass. I've done some EQing on the bass with this Shep 73. So I think that's pretty good actually for now on this. So I'm going to bounce this down, just an MP3 so I can put it in my Trello. I'll call this, what are we going to call it? Functional compression part 1. So this is additive EQ. And then I can check it before next session and make sure that I haven't ruined it. I'm doing this in headphones, which is always a little bit of a shame to do it in headphones, but I do know these headphones pretty well, but it would make live streaming a little bit hard otherwise. So that's the sacrifice I'm making to be able to show you what I'm doing. Cool. So I hope that was useful. I haven't actually had the Facebook window open at any point. So I don't even know the video's been working. I hope it has. Yeah, so please, any questions, just hit me up and I'll do my best to answer them as soon as I can. And I hope you found that useful. Yeah, I just want to say hi to Mr. Fever. He's loving the flute. And hi to Tuco as always. How you doing, man? Hope you're good. So guys, yeah, I hope you found that useful. And I will be back. I'm going to try and do obviously a lot more live streaming at the very least once a week on a Wednesday. And then I'm going to try and get back into just composing music on the fly, which is my ultimate aim, and maybe doing it live. Because actually this track came about with me doing that. And the other track I'm mixing at the moment also came about from a live stream of me just making music on the spot. And yeah, so I'm going to try and do more of that. But as I said, I just had a load of music in that was just hanging around, that just needed to get finished. And it's cool because I've got maybe like 6 or 7 tracks all getting finished at the same time, which is great. But yeah, I just needed to get my head down and stop writing new stuff and not being able to finish it because I don't have the time, and actually just finish a load of stuff. So I'm kind of coming out of that tunnel a little bit now. So I will be able to do more live streaming and show you more stuff. So guys, thanks for being with me this afternoon, and I'll be back as soon as possible. All right, cheers.